Production context settings. So we have Bhargav with us today. He is a business process management expert with 19 years of experience. And what we will cover in today's session is we'll look at the role of BPM within the enterprise architect. How does it uh, impact? And then, of course, we will also look at how SAP Signavio, SAP Linux, and the SAP Cloud ALM, all when they get connected together, how they enable the digital transformation and help build a robust architecture. Yeah. With that, I will hand over to Bhargav. We can start.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you can hear me. No.
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you very much for joining this session today. I hope it is a discussion today, so let's keep it interactive. While I come with experience around enterprise architecture, business process management over the last 19 years, I've also been a user of these different tools, Signavio, Linux, and Cloud ALM as part of my daily job as well. So um, I would like to also share the experience that I have gained over the last years with some anecdotes as well, and open for you also to please also jump in and contribute wherever you can. Now, um, yeah. So why are we talking about this topic today, right? And the key question that we want to answer is, in any organization, who owns the business process? Who owns the technology that the business process runs on? And when did these two sets of people sit in the same room to talk about it and collaborate? So maybe just open up for participants in the audience in the call today. In any organization, are these sitting together? Are these collaborating? Are these teams collaborating? Do they use tools for collaboration? Uh, are these tools integrated? So maybe if we can just open up or put your points in chat. Let's start with a bit of interaction here.
I can see one reaction. It says no.
Okay.
Thanks,
No.
Ganesh.
Okay. Absolutely. Um, Poonam and Mukesh, I think somebody else from SAP is waiting in the room, waiting in the lobby. I hope everybody can be allowed in. Okay. All right. Yeah. So the point is that, yes, business process is owned by a business owner. Technology is owned by typically the IT organization, the CDIO's organization, right? And typically, these two teams sit together only when there is an implementation project which happens. Either it is an SAP implementation or is it a planning solution implementation. When there is a technology implementation, that is when these two teams sit together in the same room and then realize that we do not know what we have, what are the processes that we have in our organization. The business knows what IT they are using, but do they know the entire picture of all the systems which are available in their landscape? That is again something which is missing. And so this leads to that disconnect in terms of IT and business. Now let's look at it from a slightly bigger picture in our day-to-day life as well, right? Uh, I'm sure you must have heard, I mean, we are all enterprise architects here in this room. But when we look at historically the concept of architecture itself, there is this, um, legend that this particular house in UK, every room that was built at a different point of time by a different set of architects, by a different set of builders, and everything that was done here was actually completely not planned at all. There was no architecture. There was no idea on what is going to happen next. So every time a new idea comes in, right, they then build it and then they realize that the outcome is actually not really useful. The outcome is not useful at all. So without having a blueprint or a master plan, as you can see, there were zero architects, but there were 147 builders. So many doors opening to blank walls, so many staircases abandoned. And after 38 years, you spend a lot of money, but the outcome is not something which is expected or desired, right? Similarly, there are so many examples in this world about, buildings which have been done where there has been no plan, there has been no architect involved, or those architects have looked at very small parts of the topic or the area, and they see that the outcome is completely wild. In some cases, it is good because that leads to innovation. But it is also important to have a plan, and so that really works well, and it is something which comes out as valuable. Another example in our own day-to-day lives, we have our closet where if we have everything placed in different places without organization, if we want to look for something in that mess, it takes us time. But if we have it all organized in a proper manner, t-shirts going into a specific place, socks going into a specific place, and so on. When we need to look for something, it makes our life easier, right? So, with this context, talking about architecture in general, right? It is therefore we all know why we need an enterprise architecture or architecture in general. So today, what we'll do over the next 30 minutes is talk briefly about enterprise architecture, uh, what is business process management, and then what is business process management in the context of enterprise architecture, how it works together, and business process management, enterprise architecture do not move into execution, and that is another challenge that we typically face. So how do you move from enterprise architecture, which is strategy, business process management, which is the how, and execution is actually getting deep into the actual execution and implementation. And finally, we will close by talking about how there are how AI is getting injected into this context of enterprise architecture and business process management. While we are here, just again want to open up and see if any of you have seen, similar cases where architecture in our lives have not worked very well, and that leads to broken outcomes.
So big example right
Gaurav.
now in India is the education system
Education
and all the
system, right?
struggle that came up with it. Sorry, someone else was saying something.
Yeah, okay, it was me adding to, when we are discussing with customers, there's always a hybrid architecture in, the customer's place, where the legacy sits and the new sits, and then their data silos across, and it's very difficult to integrate and, get the right insights, making the decision making very difficult. So this is also a common trend everywhere.
Another
True, true.
example is there was an example of a road that got constructed in somewhere in India,
Mumbai.
which met at 90 degrees.
Yes, that was in, yeah. The other one is that, you're right, Mukesh. So the other one was in, I think in Mumbai, where the flyover was a four-lane flyover, which, gets into a two-lane flyover because uh, there was no land acquisition which was done adequately after a certain point, right? So again, that is another failed architecture. Okay, thanks for the participation, and let's move into some of the details here. Let's understand what is enterprise architecture. We have seen architecture in general, and what is enterprise architecture in a little bit of detail, and how our tools are actually helping us as well. So In any organization, as we saw, right, we have the senior management, the business, the senior stakeholders in our organization. They have some expectations. Now that AI is there, the senior management always expects that with AI injected, introduced, we magically transform ourselves and are able to improve our productivity and also reduce, the manpower involved in actions and activities. So we want to increase AI adoption, and that is their stakeholders, the senior stakeholders' expectation. At the lowest level in the organization, again, from an IT department perspective, what they are seeing is, okay, let's now implement a bunch of new applications. And always there is this gap which occurs, which exists. And that is where, again, we need to also bring in business. Business wants to achieve a certain business outcome. We want to optimize our order to cash process and therefore reduce our days sales outstanding, for example. So there's a business outcome. So senior management expectations, strategy, execution by IT, and business in the middle to actually guide what is the business outcome that we want to achieve. This is why we need enterprise architecture in any organization to help us bridge this gap, to help us bring in transparency, trust, and governance. The challenge, however, is that this is not so straightforward. This is all very complicated because this translation from strategy to execution is not so straightforward. And things happen in silos, and therefore, a capability like enterprise architecture is really important, which brings all these together in a seamless manner. Traditionally, we had the TOGAF framework and the ADM methodology, which helped us manage this gap from strategy to execution with very defined artifacts, with very defined stages in the process of enterprise architecture management. This, of course, laid the foundation for tools to help build on top of TOGAF to achieve this enterprise architecture methodology. For example, LeanIX as a tool, which is an SAP tool for the last 4 or 5 years, where LeanIX helps us understand the business capabilities, analyze and evaluate how each application in our organization supports these business capabilities, get a view on the applications and how they support the business processes in the organization, understand the applications, whether they are technical or functionally fit for our purpose, and then have a clear view on integration and plan a roadmap. So basically, LeanIX as a tool helps us manage our enterprise architecture and drive towards the TOGAF based methodology and TOGAF based artifacts within a collaborative platform. And of course, with AI getting embedded in LeanIX also, there are a lot of new capabilities which have come in to accelerate the whole use of LeanIX for enterprise architecture management. For example, the AI inventory builder, where you can actually just drag and drop images and of your enterprise architecture, and that will actually then be translated into artifacts in your LeanIX platform. Similarly, you can have an AI copilot, which is across SAP, which is called Joule, which sits on top of LeanIX, where you can ask questions, conversational AI, to ask very specific questions about what is there in our enterprise architecture. And of course, also multiple other capabilities, AI capabilities are now part of LeanIX. Just want to break here quickly and understand, in your organizations, do you have similar tools to help you manage the business capabilities? What are the applications that we have which support those business capabilities? Where are these applications being used in your organization? What are the processes which are being enabled by these applications and so on? So just want to open up and understand if in your organizations you are using such capabilities.
Please
Yeah,
feel free
hi,
to, yeah, go on.
Bhargav. Good morning. So we are using Linux and Signavio for these things. We just started implementing it.
Okay. So what,
Thanks,
again, maybe
Vandana.
I'll put you in the spot. So typically now, as you're starting this journey, um, uh, what are the first steps that you have undertaken to get, Lean IX set up? What are the first steps that you have started doing?
Yeah, for LeanIX, I think for LeanIX and Signavio, both the business capabilities are very important. So we have built up a team who has volunteered for part of this implementation, and we are jointly uh, making the business capability sheet. It will take some time, but this is the basic foundation which will link all the other things. So next comes the fact sheet for LeanIX. So we
Right.
have to summarize our application, list down all the applications. So one is that. The other important component is the IT component. So
Perfect.
and the interfaces, yeah. So here the application connects everything. Uh, the data is being consumed, interfaces are being used.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Vandana. Thank you for jumping in, right? And that brings me to this slide where every organization has different ways of starting their enterprise architecture journey, right? The one of the ways to start with what are the applications we have in our organization, how are they integrated, what are the data objects that they use. So some of the organizations start with the application and data architecture as the starting point. Some other organizations start with business capability as the primary starting point, so that they understand what are the capabilities that we have in our organization and what are the capabilities that we do not have today and what we need to evolve going forward in our organization. For example, an automotive company which is in the traditional internal combustion engine based manufacturing setup, to move to a EV manufacturing setup, what are the business capabilities that we have today? What are the gaps in our business capability and where do we want to go going forward, right? So different organizations start with different starting points. Some start with the application, some start with the business capability, and some, of course, then also look at the IT components, the infrastructure that is supporting those applications. So what LeanIX helps us do is bring all these different fact sheets or objects into one single place so that you can actually start from anywhere and navigate through and go to what do we want to achieve. So for example, the senior stakeholders in our organization would like to start at what are the objectives that we want to achieve, right, in our organization. For example, as I said, move into the EV automotive manufacturing business. That could be an objective. Then that then moves into the business capability to see if we have the right business capabilities. Do we have the applications that support those business capabilities? Do we have the infrastructure that supports those applications? What are the integrations? What are the data objects? And so on. But one thing which is really key in this whole journey is also business context. What is the business process that a particular business capability or application actually supports? And that is where we then move in from LeanIX, okay, into business process management. Business context is our linking point from enterprise architecture to business process management, and these are linked at the place of the business capability. Now let's move for a short period of time from enterprise architecture to what exactly is business process management. Again, in any organization, there is a team mostly called process excellence or process audit, or some such organizations or entities are available within the organization or departments, right? Process excellence is something, again, which is very critical. When we talk about process excellence, we really want to understand how our processes are running today, right? What are the compliance challenges that users may be performing? What are the non-conformances which may be happening? What are rework loops which may be happening while users are doing the same thing multiple times, and so on and so forth, right? Process excellence as a department in any organization tries to understand these different challenges and then tries to streamline the process which is getting executed so that we ultimately have a very seamless and very harmonized end-to-end process. The first starting point of any business process management platform or excellence department is to actually create a model of what is actually happening in the organization. This model is basically a representation of the real thing. So, for example, in my organization, I have a process which says I have an invoice. That invoice is issued by the vendor. I create and post the invoice in my SAP system. Then I release it for payment, and then the payment gets cleared. That's the real thing which is happening by users, right? Now, the model actually depicts what is really happening in a much more simplified and abstract point of view. That really helps every user in the organization understand what is actually happening, but we do not want to go into a complete detail of everything that happens, but at a right level of abstraction. And that is the critical part of any business process management platform or process excellence department in an organization, to model the reality to the level that is required. This model is actually very critical because that becomes the foundation of every process improvement that we may then undertake from that, right? For example, in any organization, as I was talking to you about, we can create a process model like this, which basically says that there are different roles which are there in the organization, right? These are the swim lanes. What is the trigger for my process? What are the different activities? What is the timeline that is involved for us to look at? Are there any decisions that need to be made, and so on and so forth, right? And what is finally my end outcome? The end outcome is that an order is shipped or the order is cancelled. So there are different rules which are embedded into the process diagram, and this is the foundation. You need to first understand how things are happening in my process, so that then you can start looking at process improvement. So for this, there are multiple tools in the industry for process modeling. One of those tools is Signavio, which is what we will then go into subsequently. But process excellence doesn't stop with just the process modeling. It has now evolved into process analytics, which looks at a data-driven approach of looking at how your processes are getting executed by looking at timestamp information from various IT systems that you may already have, and also embedding AI as part of this transformation, moving from your ASIS process document or your diagram, doing a data driven analysis, and then using AI to look at root causes, why something is happening, and then also design my to be process using AI capabilities. That is something where tools are evolving, and Signavio as a tool from SAP is helping you move from along this transition. So let's get into Signavio for a couple of minutes and look at what Signavio actually is, right? Signavio is a cloud-based process management or process excellence suite, which helps you discover your processes, analyze them, and transform these processes, right? So when we look at what are the different capabilities in Signavio, there are analytical capabilities, okay? There are analytics capabilities in Signavio to help you connect Signavio to your IT systems and do a data-driven analytics to see how your processes are running. There are certain plug and play capabilities for SAP applications. For example, if you're using an SAP ERP or SAP S/4HANA or transportation management, Ariba, and so on, there is plug and play capability to connect Signavio to your SAP systems and within a few hours analyze how your processes are running. But we can also go into a deep process mining where then Signavio is completely agnostic to whether it is an SAP application or a non-SAP application, right? So you can do a deep process mining to look at how your process is getting executed, what are the different paths being taken, and are there rework loops which are happening, and so on. And finally, also come into the documentation aspect where you can document your business processes. So Signavio as a cloud-based platform helps you discover, analyze, and continuously improve your business processes. So again, we start with a simple process diagram. Signavio can be used to do create these process diagrams. Again, traditionally, these process diagrams used to be done manually by dragging and dropping objects on the screen. But with AI getting embedded as part of Signavio, we now have what is called as AI assisted process modeling. So you can actually just use conversational AI in Signavio to generate these process diagrams so that you do not manually draw these. And it will also contextually then guide you on what additional improvements can be done in your process diagram. You can use voice, for example, to dictate what needs to be done, and that then translates that into the process diagram also, right? Now, this is something which really helps move the whole process documentation aspect. It accelerates this aspect of process documentation with AI capabilities, as well as moving your assess process using recommendations which the tool provides on how you can further improve these processes. Not only are we able to do process documentation, as I mentioned, we can also enrich these process models with process mining data, introduce governance aspects, create process initiatives and insights. Everything is possible using Signavio's transformation suite so that your whole process excellence journey actually becomes much simpler. So we have seen two aspects: enterprise architecture and business process management. So again, I would just like to pause here and understand, in your organizations, do you have a process management platform that you're using? How is it typically done today in your organizations? If you're uncomfortable unmuting yourself, please feel free to put your comments on chat as well. Okay, while we are waiting, yes, thanks. Currently, they are scattered. They are available in different SharePoints, PPTs, PDFs, Visio diagrams, and so on. The other challenge which we have seen organizations face is that it is all in people's memories, it's all in people's brains, right? The whole idea of how a process needs to be run is something which is there in people's minds, and it is not documented anywhere. And that leads to basically, when that person moves out of the organization, that whole knowledge is lost for the future generations. Again, I'll take one example from my own experience in the last couple of years. There was an organization where they had 10 years ago introduced MRP to create purchase requisitions. They used MRP to create purchase requisitions, and this capability in the SAP system was actually continuously creating purchase requisitions. But what the users found is that those certain set of those purchase requisitions are not relevant in their organization. So they needed to actually delete those PRs. So what was happening in the system is MRP was creating those purchase requisitions, but there was a batch job which was created separately where certain sets of PRs were actually deleted automatically every midnight. Every 12 midnight, these PRs were getting deleted. When we did a process mining of that particular system, we found that this was happening. And when we spoke to the business, they said, "Oh, we are not aware." And the IT was also completely unaware of what was happening. And then when they did a detailed analysis, that is when they found out that MRP was creating these PRs, and there was a batch job which was deleting these PRs, and the users were then again creating PRs manually. So that is something which was unearthed using a capability like Signavio. Absolutely. So processes and SOPs exist somewhere, but they are not documented in a central place. There is no integration with what applications are being used in my organization. Let me now bring both these together, right? As we spoke, we saw enterprise architecture, we saw what is BPM. Let's bring both these together. Typically, in any organization, as we saw, process documentation is available. The IT team knows what technology is available. What is really critical is to bring both these together. So on the left side, you can see the process part of things. where we have end-to-end processes and journeys. For example, source to pay. Under source to pay, then we have multiple L2 processes, and then we go down to L3, L4, L5. Ultimately, we have the lowest level of business process model itself. In parallel, we also have the functional view where we have the departments, right? we we have the sourcing and procurement department, which is a business capability. Under that, again, we have multiple business capabilities, which is operational procurement, for example, supplier management, planning and sourcing. Again, under planning and sourcing, you have multiple lower level business capabilities. And ultimately, we can see that this links back together. The lowest level is the business process diagram, which combines my operations view and my functional view into one single visualization or architecture. So again, in any organization, these are separate. People don't know what's happening on the left and the right. And that is where, again, it is really critical to bring both these together. And Signavio and LeanIX are integrated in multiple layers. Okay. And Signavio as your process management platform is integrated where the process, which is your single source of truth in Signavio, can be pushed or synchronized into LeanIX's business context fact sheet. These business context fact sheets are used in certain applications, and they support a particular business capability, which is used in multiple organizations and so on. Similarly, the applications can also be synchronized into Signavio so that we again have a view of which processes are deployed or enabled through which applications. So together, Signavio and LeanIX are synchronized, are integrated, and that brings us a unified source of truth. Signavio for business processes and LeanIX for the IT landscape. Now, there are multiple use cases for this. Signavio, as again we see on the right side, we have the process diagrams. These process diagrams are brought into LeanIX as fact sheets, business context fact sheets, and these are then linked to business capabilities, applications, and so on. That helps us in our application portfolio management use case, because in LeanIX, when we are looking at application portfolio management, the process perspective allows us to see if I am removing a particular application, if I'm going to replace a particular application, what are the processes which are going to break, right? And therefore, what is the action that I need to perform as part of my project to ensure that the change in IT is impacting the process in the right way, in the expected way, right? So that is something which is really critical. And that is one of the use cases of how Signavio and LeanIX, the integration and interoperability allows us to manage application portfolio much better. Similarly, from the other side of things, right, when we look at Signavio and we are looking at business processes, we are looking at a process improvement. We really also need to see what are the applications which are being used for that particular process. And therefore, we need to analyze the impact of a process change and what therefore needs to be done in the application. So, for example, if I just go into one level deeper, Signavio becomes your single source of truth for all process content, where we can link the process diagram to KPIs, what is really happening at each stage of my process. So, for example, create purchase requisition as an activity. What are the KPIs which are impacted for that particular activity? And we can also see which application is being used to enable that particular activity. Here in this case, we can see it is SAP. And for another example, it is an RPA bot and so on and so forth, right? So we can actually link the process with KPIs as well as applications. So when we look at process analysis, the process diagram allows us to go deeper and analyze how our processes are getting executed in our organization. What are the bottlenecks? What are the different parts being used by our users in the live process? So bring that information back into my process diagram. In addition, I can also link that to my LeanIX, to my IT landscape. From Signavio, I can also then move into LeanIX to see all the information around my application fact sheet. For example, what is the name, description, what is the life cycle information, when is my application going to be end of life, what is the future of one particular application. So I know that today I'm using SAP ERP. The successor for ERP is SAP S/4HANA, and so on and so forth. All the information around applications are available in LeanIX, which is again brought in to Signavio to bring that single source of truth. If we now also move into LeanIX, there also we can see how these are interrelated. For example, I can see what are the different business capabilities in LeanIX. And on the y-axis, I have all the different processes which are available. So these processes are coming in from Signavio, and what are the applications which are used to support these business processes and these business capabilities. So here again, I'm very easily and very transparently able to see what are the applications we have, what is the business capability that it is serving, which business process is it enabling. So by bringing in Signavio and LeanIX together, we are now able to see this full picture of applications and business capabilities and business processes. Now we move to the next section where we saw enterprise architecture, we saw business process management, how these two are integrated, but we also need to see how your project gets executed in a platform approach, right? So that is where Cloud ALM also comes into picture, where Signavio, LeanIX, and Cloud AM together unlock value throughout your transformation journey in different stages of this transformation, how each of these are integrated, how these are interoperable. And we can actually look at, for example, here, synchronize the business processes in Signavio into Cloud ALM. And from there, in Cloud ALM, we can capture what are the requirements associated with the business processes, what are the user stories, as well as what are the test scripts, what are the test cases. The actual execution of your project can then be managed in Cloud ALM, but also as we see linked back to the business process, which is coming from Signavio. So together, again, as we can see, Signavio becomes your single source of truth for process information. You are able to push that process, business process, into Cloud ALM and link that business process into requirements, user stories, tasks, everything to do with your project execution itself. Yeah, there's a question on chat. So can we use Signavio and LeanIX on ECC platform? Absolutely, Signavio and LeanIX, not only can you use it on your ECC platform, they are also completely agnostic to SAP, right? So while we have added value accelerators for SAP specific, but we are also able to use Signavio and LeanIX for non-SAP applications and platforms as well. So everything can be brought in into Signavio and LeanIX for enterprise architecture management and cloud ALM and business processes. As I said, once you do that, you can also manage test cases within Cloud ALM and also use our partner solution called Tricentis for creating automated testing, automated test cases within, and all these are then linked back. And that is the key message that I want to bring, right? Every activity in your business process from Signavio is linked back to test scripts and test cases which are there in any SAP and non-SAP test applications. So coming back, yes, so the question on how can we use it for non-SAP applications? Ultimately, the whole conversation in Signavio is around the concept of activities and timestamps. So in any process, whether it is SAP or non-SAP, every activity has a timestamp which is associated with it. For example, if you are creating an invoice, what is the timestamp when the invoice was created? When was it cleared? Again, it is a timestamp. So what you can do is bring that timestamp information from any source, any application, and do the process analysis in Signavio. So all these actually come together into what we call as our transformation tool chain or integrated tool chain. Um, from the application perspective, as we saw, we have in LeanIX for application lifecycle management. We have Cloud ALM for test management. We have our partner solution called Tricentis. Signavio plays a role across the entire process management lifecycle, whether it is process modeling, analysis, and mining. From a digital adoption standpoint, WalkMe helps us in learning and enablement, adoption and change management. And from a data perspective, we do have other solutions in SAP's ecosystem, whether it is the Business AI platform, Business Data Cloud, BTP, as well as again our partner solution, Synity for data migration. All these work together in a seamless manner with information flowing across each of these capabilities. LeanIX again for application discovery, transformation roadmap, Cloud ALM for implementation, project management, Signavio for analysis and process design, WalkMe for user behavior analysis, Synity for data transition, Tricentis for automated testing, and then Signavio again, once you go live, you look at it for continuous process monitoring and continuous improvement. Any other questions so far? Because the last section, then I move into the concept of AI excellence, because going forward, everything around what we are hearing is around AI. Organizations are going wild in implementing AI use cases, but the value that is being realized from these AI use cases has been limited, and the investment therefore needs to be managed and governed in the right way. So SAP has come up with a concept called AI agent excellence across all these tools, and I'll then move into that topic.
Okay, there's one question in the chat.
Yeah. What capabilities are required for implementation partner, right? So implementation partners again need to, from a technology perspective, as you rightly said, Signavio activation and implementation is actually very, very simple and straightforward. There is not much technical implementation involved there. But the key thing is around bringing in functional experience and functional knowledge. And that is something which is critical as well. So partners need to bring in the knowledge around industry, how things are being run in different industries, how different organizations, how their processes are being run, and so forth, so on. But again, there, Signavio really helps us, helps partners also, because ultimately, what Signavio helps us is to give you what is called as best practice content. So for process modeling, Signavio comes with best practice content for different industries and different verticals, and very, very, very specific nuances. What are the processes available and necessary, right? So Signavio provides you those best practice content also. So the capability that partner needs to bring is to really bring in their experience from different implementations, use the best practices, and then modify those best practices to suit that particular customer's implementation. There are very, very clear implementation uh, guidelines which are available. We can share that offline as well. Maybe somebody from the SAP team, you can share, the Activate methodology and how the Signavio, LeanIX, Cloud ALM, WalkMe, all these work together as part of an implementation project. Okay, last section, getting into the AI in the context of enterprise architecture and BPM. As we always see, right, we hear everywhere AI seems to be the North Star everybody wants to reach and use AI in all our organizations. But the critical thing is AI needs data to run on. Data is generated and consumed by applications. Applications enable business processes, and people actually execute those business processes, right? So this is the chain. AI needs data. Data is consumed and provided by applications. Applications enable business processes, and people are the ones who actually execute those business processes. Anywhere in this chain, if there is a breakdown, if there is a connection which is missed, right, then we will not be able to achieve the expectations and objectives of AI, whether it is between process and applications, where the application is not delivering the expectations of the process, whether it is between the process and people, where people deviate from the processes, they do things which are easy for them and not necessarily best for the business, or anywhere, right? So in any of this, if there is a breakdown, AI is not going to generate the value. So that is where again SAP has come up with this concept and framework for AI agent excellence, which is an end-to-end journey. This is still at a concept stage. Some of these are available already in these platforms that we spoke about. But the concept or the framework that we are talking about, it's really critical to understand. I'll just spend 3 minutes here on this, and then we'll open up for any further Q&A. The first thing is to actually understand what are the opportunities that we have in our organizations for agents to be incorporated. It is really critical to actually see where is the highest value, not just implement AI agents just because they are available. You need to actually identify what is the value associated with that agent, which process is going to get improved because of that agent, and then deploy that, right? Not starting from the rightmost side where you have an AI agent, you deploy it, because then the value is not being seen. So the first critical step is what we call as value discovery and agent recommendation. This is something that Signavio can help you do by looking at your process execution. What are the gaps in the process? Where do we have compliance issues, rework, and then look at the value that is generated or lost because of that gap, and then implement AI agents according to that. The second step is to then use this context to design and build your agents in the platform of your choice. So that is again really critical that you have this context before you get in and design and build the agent. Again, here what Signavio can help you do is to really create an intent text, right? What is an intent text? An intent text is similar to, you give it to an AI agent builder, and using that intent and context, the agent builder then generates and builds the agent in the platform of your choice, whether it is SAP, Build, Anthropic, or any of the other partners that we work with, right? So you use that intent from Signavio in your platform to build the agent. So again, context is very important. SAP is again coming up with a concept called company memory, where again, we bring in the process information through Signavio. We bring in policy information. So you may have multiple policy documents which you have in your organization. Use that to create what we call as process atoms. And these process atoms allow us to then combine the process information and these atoms together to introduce the context. So context is really important. And then you go live with the AI capability. After you go live, you really need to manage the agentic execution, control it. Is the agent which is being already delivered, is it giving us the right value? Use capabilities like telemetry to understand how much is being used. Are these agents actually running the right way? Signavio has a capability called AI agent mining. So you can bring in agent logs, use that in Signavio's agent mining capability to then see if those agents are actually delivering value as expected, right? So together, This is the framework that SAP is uh, encouraging our customers to use. Understand where to introduce AI agents, build it in the agent in the platform of your choice, infuse context to the agent by looking at your policy documents, your processes, your data execution, historical data execution. And after go live, control how this agent is executing by understanding and analyzing the processes. This becomes a continuous loop again, in terms of continuously optimizing how your processes are getting run, how your IT landscape is, and also how your AI agents are enabling your processes and your people in the right way. With this, I would like to conclude, and I'm open to any questions or any other anecdotes from our organization, from our own, from SAP, as well as your own anecdotes as well, please.
So I don't know if you covered already answered Raghunath's question, which is, can we get the SAP link of implementation guidelines?
Yeah, I think if one of my colleagues can, locate the activate methodology, uh, it's already available in our sap.linax, linax help page. If somebody can locate that and share, that will be very helpful. Otherwise, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. There is a question, I don't know if from Ganesh, if you have already addressed it. He's asking, what I understand, both solutions are primarily study of business process and process
Correct.
analysis rather than a technical implementation. What capabilities are required for implementation? Partner, any RACI available, which is roles.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
covered that briefly, Mukesh. Again, to reiterate,
Yeah.
the key point is technical implementation is easy, as I said. The real key is bringing in the functional knowledge and the industry experience. That's the primary, capability that a partner needs to bring in. There are SAP best practices available to help you start the journey, but partners really need to bring in the experience and knowledge, implementing across the world, across organizations, across industries, overlay that on the best practices and share with your customers.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, Bhargav, maybe I can also probably ask, because this is a question which comes from most customers, right? That they already are using tools for process modeling and even for application management, right? They would have several tools. So, is there some kind of a migration path or a approach or a tooling that SAP can help to move from those tools to SAP Signavio and Linux?
Yeah. Yes. So basically, if you have a process model, for example, again, if you look at the process models, they may have it in PowerPoints, Visios, or any other tool. There are multiple capabilities for bringing in these processes. One is, let me just bring up that slide. I think that will be very helpful to show. Yeah. So there are multiple capabilities in Signavio to bring in existing process diagrams. One is, as I said, if you have a process documentation which is already available in some format, whether it is a PPT, image, or a Visio diagram, there is one is the AI capability, which is called image to process. So you can just use that AI capability to bring in Signavio's AI capability, understands the diagram, understands the image, and recreates the process diagram. In another scenario, you can have these process diagrams. They may have a process documentation in a Word format. You may have a blueprint document which is already available, which a partner might have created as part of their previous project. So that may already be available in a text format. So we have a text to process capability, again, AI capability, which converts the text into a process diagram. Partners also have their own process diagrams and process knowledge, which have already been documented in Signavio. So if you are engaged with any of these partners, they will also be able to bring in their knowledge, which they already have. as I was mentioning, best practice content is available. And the most important thing is also data driven process modeling. So you already have your SAP system. We have a concept called retro process documentation. From your data, from your execution, we can actually convert that into process diagrams. So there are multiple ways of doing that.
Yeah.
I hope I
Nice,
answered your
nice.
question.
Yeah, Malcolm. Yeah. But would you like to also throw some light on, most customers obviously have custom processes, right? We do have, of course, our SAP reference business architecture and all that is there, but
Correct.
customers have heavy custom process. So how do they handle, and your experience there?
Yeah, so good question. See, from a process documentation perspective, we expect or we encourage customers to document your end-to-end processes, whether they are, custom or standard. We really encourage you to do end-to-end every activity that you perform, whether it is manual, email, there is a bot, anything custom. You create your process document end to end, right? Wherever it may happen. From a process documentation perspective, we encourage you to be completely agnostic. Now, coming to process analysis specifically, where we looked at process insights and process intelligence. Process insights is completely looking at your standard processes, how are they being done. What we can, of course, do is bring in those customizations, configure that into our process intelligence capability to actually bring SAP standard, SAP custom, as well as non-SAP into one end-to-end process analysis. So that can be done as part of process mining.
Okay. And what is the complexity, or how is the, I would say, the implementation efforts required to do such a thing based on your experience? Is it tedious? Is time consuming, or you find that we have tools which can,
No,
accelerate
so
it?
it's actually quite straightforward. See,
Okay.
for for your SAP capabilities, it is plug and play, as I was saying, right? You can just analyze SAP plug and play. We have capabilities. Let me take one example: the gate entry process again, which is my favorite. The gate entry process is something which happens typically outside SAP. There is a custom application which is there at the security gate, for example. When a truck is entering, they enter that, they look at the details from the supplier, and then they create the gate entry there as a separate application. But what is really critical is that application actually writes back into SAP as part of some kind of a goods movement activity. So again, there could be a SAP standard table, there could be a non-SAP, there could be a custom table again. So what SAP Signavio really does is we have the standard tables, for example, and then there is a custom table. You just need to do a join in Signavio to identify what is the additional information which the custom table is providing. It is a data, any data analyst in the organization can do that quite simply. It's not so complicated.
That's great. Thanks. The question in the chat, Bhargav, maybe we could take that.
Yes. Can we use SAP Signavio free trial to connect to an SAP S/4HANA public edition tenant? Okay, so currently Signavio is the free trial that is available on the website, that is for the process modeling capability. So you can use those process modeling capabilities for any application, as I was saying, completely agnostic. But the critical thing is for SAP S/4HANA publication, we do not have plug and play capabilities as yet. So from a trial perspective, it will not be possible. But there are capabilities which are there in the tool to do that. But yeah, not as part of the trial. For private edition, we do have the trial capabilities. You can use that. We have something called as the Signavio Process Insights Discovery Edition, which you can use to do a trial on your SAP ECC or your SAP S/4HANA private cloud or on-premise applications as well.
Okay. I hope, Vipin, that answered your question.
Happy to take, maybe we can connect offline as well, Vibin, so that we can look at any specific ways to address your specific concern. Thank you.
Great, great. Bhargav, I think we have come to the end of the session. Before I hand it over to Mukesh, Mas, thank you. Very insightful indeed. It's so good to see that we have several tools and, customers can leverage this, and when they are all integrated, they give great value, right? So with that, thank you very much.